rule one of proactivity is to talk to the person you want to be proactive with about something they care about. And there's not much more that parents and grandparents care about than their children and grandchildren. So the financial well-being of children and grandchildren is a subject that you're likely to get interest in with the people you're talking to, the parents or grandparents of those children. So the financial well-being of the children whilst they're very young is of course anchored inextricably to the financial well-being of their parents. And if their parents are your clients, that's the job that you have to do, ensuring that the parents are looked after financially. But there will be, and I know this personally, there will be great interest amongst parents and grandparents in the future financial well-being of their children and grandchildren. So I'll start saying children from this point on, pretty much, to stop keep saying children and grandchildren. So how can we help there? We can help quite a lot. Certainly, if we're looking way into the future, then pensions for children are a really appealing way of saving, because you get the tax relief on the way in. It's all the good stuff that goes with pensions, the tax relief on the way in, the tax freedom of the funds, and the tax-free cash when you come out, except of course you can't get the money until your pension will date till way into the future, which may well be a good thing. Some will see that as a good thing. The other tax no-brainer, of course, is the junior ISA. The contribution limits for that have gone up quite significantly this year to around £9,000. So that's also interesting. The one thing that puts people off, and I know this also from personal experience and conversations that I've had, is that at age 18, it becomes the absolute property of the child. And that, if you're a non-trusting sort of person, or just someone's a little bit concerned about what happens in the future to that money at that point in time, at age 18, you might want to put a few constraints over it, in which case the JISA doesn't help you. It's tremendously tax efficient, doesn't give you the front-end tax relief that the pension gives you, but it does give you tax freedom on the funds and tax freedom on what you take from the funds. So if you're prepared to trade in a little bit of that simplicity and tax freedom, then you could consider an ordinary collective investment, a unit trust, or an open-ended investment company held in an appropriate form of trust. Now that could be right for a parent or a grandparent. For a grandparent who's making the contribution, perhaps regularly out of income, getting the benefit of pound cost averaging, not having to agonize over the right time to invest with markets up or down and trying to time the market and all of that. So for regular savings, that can look quite appealing, because you have no anti-avoidance provisions on the income under the trust and no anti-avoidance provisions on the capital gains either. So you can anchor both of those to the child's personal allowance and the child's capital gains tax exemption with the right sort of trust. The more discretion you want, the more work you have to do to get that tax outcome. Okay, so the next thing to consider is, how about parents then? Well, the parents they can get the CGT exemption if they use the right sort of trust, which for parents and grandparents is effectively a bare trust. They can't get the income tax freedom that they can get up to the child's personal allowance, because there's an anti-avoidance provision, and if more than £100 of income is produced from a parental gift, it's assessed on the parent. So you need to be a little more constrained in relation to the underlying investment if you want to do that. Now, if you have a lump sum to invest in one, it might well be, and you're interested in simplicity, then some thought could be given to an offshore bond. It's really simple. You just invest in the offshore bond, you have tax-free growth inside the bond, and with a good bit of planning at the end, with assignment of policies out to the children, perhaps if when the time comes, when they're over 18, so you've got control over when you assign it, then you get the tax freedom along the way. You get the opportunity to use the personal allowance, the personal savings allowance, possibly even the 0% starting rate band for savings income, because gains under bonds are savings income. That could give you quite a good tax outcome, especially if you take the money out over a period rather than all at once. You have the option to use those allowances with an offshore bond, and you can do that either by just owning the offshore bond yourself and deciding when's the right time to make those assignments at the later age. At the time, when you do it that way, of course, the bond is in your estate right from the very beginning for inheritance tax. If you want for that not to be the position, then you have the bond held inside a trust from outset, and you merely assign the segments out to the children when you feel it's the right time. They have to be age 18 at least to be able to give a valid discharge, but that is what most people would want. They wouldn't want to pass the money out before then. If you want to, you can pass it out to their parents you could advance to parents to use for their benefit. So a lot of scope and flexibility if you have a lump sum with the use of an offshore bond and an appropriate trust. If you're a regular saver, then maybe that set of collective investments inside an appropriate trust might work for you. And of course, if you're not too worried about the fact that the children become entitled to the asset at age 18, then a JISA works very well up to the investment limits. And of course, for the longer term saver, pensions as well. Lots of ways to have good conversations with your clients about how to financially provide for children. Of course, the first step is to understand what they're looking to do, what's most important to them, whether they want to save regularly or in a lump sum, and then you apply your know-how to achieve the best outcome, to get as close as possible to achieving their objectives. All of this is covered in great detail and much better than I've just done within Techlink under the heading Investing for Children.